Hawks Nation, what is going on? Welcome to another edition of the HawksFanTV Podcast. I'm your host, Mac, joined by my ever so handsome co-host, Mr. Derek Freeze.
What's up, Hog Nation?
Yes, sir. I am beyond excited for this week's episode because we're gonna break down the summer league and kind of give our opinions on that. But really, because our news cycle has slowed down a little bit, I don't want to just continue talking about this possible Siakam trade because at this point, I hope it does happen, but there ain't no new news on it. You know what I mean? So we ain't gonna just keep talking about it. So what we're gonna do instead is something that I'm very excited for, something that we're gonna call the history of the Hawks. And the topic we have chose for this week's episode is going to be the 1988 playoff series in the second round between the Celtics. This was a pretty epic series, guys. If you haven't looked in the series at all, I'm sure after this episode you're going to be itching to go watch a game or two because this was wild. But we'll get into that in just a little bit. As I said, we'll go ahead and kind of break down the summer league to begin with. Derek, I gotta say, man, the summer league at the end of the day, I liked what I saw from our rookies. I wasn't blown away by any of them necessarily, but I mean, I remember not necessarily being blown away by Trey in the summer league. You know what I mean? So I liked what I saw. I think there's definitely improvement for all three of them, but yet again, these guys are rookies. They're of course going to have room for improvement. I think if you're going to pick an MVP, some of the easier choices are probably Tyrese Martin and the Kobe Buffkins, and they're certainly deserving of it. I think Kobe his shooting percentage wise was definitely a lot lower than you would like to see. But again, that's just kind of what'll happen with a rookie, especially a guy who at the end of the day never really had that kind of volume at Michigan. So, maybe that is just kind of what you get right now when he has that kind of volume. But I got to be honest, man, my MVP, I got to give it to Muhammad Gay, man. I know statistic wise, he wasn't the MVP necessarily, but, he is hands down the guy that I think all of us are probably the most excited about. And that, is certainly something that I, am right there with everyone else. I'm excited about the guy, and I think his future, his ceiling is probably the highest of the three, but his floor could probably be the lowest of the three as well. He could end up being somebody that never really sees real NBA minutes, or it could be a guy that's a borderline perennial all-star. Who knows? Quite a range there. So. But yeah, man, I gotta say the summer league we ended 3-2. As you said when we first went into it, we were predicted to basically lose every single game from Vegas. So I have to admit I'm pretty happy with the result, and it was just fun in general.
Oh yeah, we had the 76ers and the Mavs. The Mavs games. When we didn't make the tournament there, I think some of those players stayed out in Vegas and had a little bit of a too good of a time. I'm sorry, but shooting 16% from three for a whole game. Woo! But overall, yes, Kobe Buffkin, you saw flashes. And like I said from the very get-go, in Summer League, I'm not looking at stats. What you hear is, even scouts when they're going out there, they're not looking at that either. They're looking at traits. And he definitely flashed at times. He flashed his drive at times. He flashed his floater, his passing, his vision, the IQ, the feel for the game, all those things. Now, also, are there areas of improvement? Of course. He's a 19-year-old kid who weighs 185 pounds soaking wet. So obviously, not to beat a dead horse, get in the weight room. Percentage shooting wasn't the best, but I like what I saw of him. It did make me realize we do need to have that veteran guard. We know we have Patty Mills right now. Is he going to be on the team or not? Who's to say? But I don't think he's ready straight up right off the rip to jump in for heavy minutes in a rotation at the NBA level. Not saying we can't work him in, but he's definitely shouldn't be our go-to guy. But he's also a 19-year-old kid playing guard in the NBA, one of the toughest positions to make that jump to. Yes, I agree with you, Muhammad Gay. If you are to look at an MVP, the flashes he's shown, as a guy with that who's that raw. There's times, but there's also the inverse of it. Like you said, there's times it's defensively, God, it's brutal. Another guy who I thought really had a quiet but good. He does exactly what's advertised with Seth Lundy. Like, even like they talked him about it. He goes, look, I know why I'm here. 3-and-D. I know what I am. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what I'm here for. And the guy, you saw it. He could shoot from anywhere. He has a hair trigger, man. That thing comes off quick, comes off fast. And he had a couple of big buckets against the 76ers there before Kobe stole the show there with 2 great drives to the basket. One driving to his right with the off glass left hand, and then the game winner, Kobe Buffkin. That nice little hesitation at the top of the right as he set the screen, nice little hesitation, explode through and then he played defense. Kobe played defense on the final possession. It was funny. The 76ers game for Kobe was the inverse of the Timberwolves game. The Timberwolves game, he came out on a tear and then kind of tear it off. The 76ers game he came out, it was ugly. I mean, he was like 1 for 6 through the third quarter, and then the fourth quarter, he stepped it up there. Miles Norris also in that 76ers game, he only played 14 minutes, but he had 12 points, 5 of 7 shooting. He's a two-way guy that we signed immediately after the draft to one of our two-way contracts. Overall, there's a lot to be impressed with. There's a lot for them to work on. All these guys are going to need, I think the only guy that we can really expect to maybe see some earlier minutes from is probably Seth Lundy. And it's just because he's a guy that can hit a 3 and can play some D. I'm not saying he's going to see heavy minutes, but I think Seth probably see more time early on at the beginning of the season. Not saying that Buffkin can't work his way in, but what I saw, like I said, it probably need another veteran guard at this point. I'm not saying he can't be that guy, just from what I see. I mean, he wasn't a pure point guard at Michigan. But that being said, that was Summer League. It was fun to have real basketball. I hate to see Krejci, roll his ankle there in that last game. He did sprain it, so hopefully, we're going to have to make a decision between him and Martin here soon, because I think Martin's this week, I think he has to get his guaranteed offer or not. So we'll kind of see which way that battle kind of goes. They both kind of tailed off at the end after having strong starts. So we'll see how that goes. But, I mean, that's Summer League. It was a fun time in Vegas. Got to see the young draft picks. But it's now the time to move on to the fun stuff, which is to talk about the guy whose statue is in front of the freaking stadium, Mr. Dominique Wilkins, in that epic 7-game series against Larry Legend and the Bucks.
Yeah, I did have a couple more things I want to say about Summer League. So let me get those. No, you're good, man. You were just going, man. So I'll let you. I like what I saw from Lundy, but I do think there was still a little left to be desired out of him. I think he kind of fell off in that last game, a game with him being a 23-year-old as opposed to a lot of guys that are a little younger. I was hoping to not see him shoot 1 for 7 and have a negative 30 on the floor that night. So I don't even know how you get that low, to be completely honest, but he somehow did it. I gotta agree, not only because of the injury, but with their play. I do think Martin will probably get that last final roster spot over Vitt, but it's yet to be determined. And like you said, it's got to be something that has got to be made. The decision has got to be made rather soon. So we'll see what happens with that. Again, I've said this before, and it's no disrespect to either one of these guys, but I'm not going to sit here and act like either one of them are final piece to a championship run. So all I'm really getting at is I prefer Tyrese Martin. I'm sure some people prefer Vic Krejci, and one of them will get it, and hopefully the other maybe some way stays with the Skyhawks or something like that. We'll see what happens. But yeah, like you said, we'll go ahead and get into that history of the Hawks segment. Before we do that, though, definitely want to go ahead and let you guys listen to our message from our guys over at Firmament Solutions.
When you need quick, effective, and accurate data cabling services, call Firmament Solutions. We care about your network infrastructure. Our services are white labeled, so you get the contracts. We provide the services. Our expertise includes low voltage communication, networking, electrical, physical security, and life safety equipment. We're industry leaders, providing 24-hour service coverage. So we ask, when is the best time to have one of our certified technicians assist you?
All right, guys. We love our guys over at Firmament, and hope you guys love them too. But as my handsome co-host said before, we now will get into that playoff series from 1988 between the Atlanta Hawks and the Boston Celtics. That was very epic, and I chose this series for a multitude of reasons. One, to kind of show that the Atlanta Hawks and the Boston Celtics, honestly, through generations, because Derek was saying off air, I'm sorry if I'm still a line from you here, but back when we won our championship in St. Louis, don't know if any of you youngins know this, but we beat the Boston Celtics, and they beat us in the finals a few times. Fast forward to the 80s, we played them in the Eastern Conference playoffs all the time, this being the most epic series by far. Obviously never really ended up beating them because that's Larry Legend and, this incredible NBA dynasty that was the Boston Celtics in the 1980s. Then fast forward to even like the mid-2010s, Isaiah Thomas and the Celtics are coming down to Atlanta and losing and I believe it was 6 that we beat them in. I was there for the game, the series clinching game. So, and then obviously, the most recent playoffs, who are we playing against? The Boston Celtics. So I thought the series was damn near perfect for that reason. And another reason is honestly because, as I did all my research on this, there were some key points that honestly really stuck out to me. And one of them being that the Hawks were at 4 points combined. 4 points combined away from beating one of the greatest franchises in NBA history. 4 points. That's insane. That's how close the series.
We won the aggregate.
Exactly.
We won the aggregate for the series.
Exactly, man. And in Game 7, if it's in Atlanta, do we end up winning it? Who knows? I know at that point you have to you can't really make that argument because regular season does matter and seeding, and I get all that. But I'm just saying, man, I'm just playing a little bit of devil's advocate here. If that game's in Atlanta, who knows what happens? That the Omni was popping back then. Dominique was honestly playing the best basketball of his entire career at the moment. This dude was insane. Let me pull up his stats real quick. All right, so yeah, he averaged 31.3 points per game, 5.4 rebounds, 2.9 assists, shot 39%, and had 47 points in a Game 7 loss. This dude went off in this series. This guy right here, he's a legend. And literally because of moments like this in the NBA. It's insane.
There's a reason why his nickname is the human highlight reel.
Exactly.
This man was doing LeBron James type stuff back in the day. And what makes it more impressive is the lanes were not as wide as they are today. Like, to get down into the paint, you took a freaking beating back in those days. And Dominique was doing this LeBron James type stuff against set defenses back when guys could literally actually mug you and get away with it. And like Kenny Smith, like he talks about it. He goes, yeah, you look at LeBron James, like Dominique was doing that way back in the day. He's the guy that kind of gave me that analogy there. Like, hey, look at this and look at that. I will say though, I think losing this series is the reason why he's not a top 50 player in the history of the league. Like, because so many of the greats.
We'll get to that. That's kind of how we're in it. Like, what did it mean for the Hawks? So we'll get into that. It was a very streaky series. Boston won Game 1 and 2. We won Game 3, 4, and 5, and then they won Game 6 and 7. So there was never really this back and forth. It was kind of just each team getting hot at the right moments. And honestly, the last key point that I noticed in my research is, could the Hawks put up a better fight in the Eastern Conference Finals against Detroit than the Celtics did? Because honestly, I'll tell you right now, Adrian Dantley would have not stopped Dominique. So I think, especially with the way Nick was playing, the answer is yes. We're going to the NBA Finals at that point. Sure, we're gonna play a Magic Johnson led Lakers. I'm not gonna sit there and act like that's an easy opponent at all. But I'm just saying, man, it's
and not just that.
We would have beaten.
And not just that. Danny Ainge is on record of saying, before, what was it, Game 6? Larry was starting to do sky hooks with his left hand and right hands in warm-up, and Danny Ainge is like, why are you doing that? And Larry Bird straight up said, my Achilles is shot. I can't do my step back. Like, they spended themselves beating the Hawks in that series. The Hawks were younger. If they win, I mean, woulda, coulda, shoulda. Like, it's the story of the Atlanta experience. I call it being an Atlanta sports sufferer. It's like, it's our history.
It's what it is, man. It is what it is.
But,
hey, Braves won a championship. I'm not a Georgia fan, but those of us in Atlanta that are Georgia fans, we're changing the tune.
There's another.
This whole sad song.
Another Georgia team that has a lot of championships, Mac.
Atlanta.
They're from South Georgia.
Down right here, man. But yeah, no, there's some pretty key statistics throughout the series that again really stuck out to me. Each team had a pace factor for the series at 92.5. So each possession mattered heavily. You're scoring 90 points a game, basically. Come on, each possession matters at that point. The Celtics had a turnover rate of 14.9 compared to the Hawks' 9.7, and also a lower offensive rating and a lower defensive rating. So honestly, man, we just in all key statistics, we were outmanning them. We were just so close. Like I said, 4 points. Dominique put up 40 plus points twice in this series, man, twice. And I think honestly that cemented himself as one of the best players of the 80s. As you just kind of got at, for whatever reason, he's not remembered as a top 50 player, but in the 80s, you're damn right he's a top 10, 15 player for sure. Tree Rollins, I know you remember Tree Rollins, Derek.
7-1.
He attempted 4 field goals in Game 6 and Game 7 combined and started in both games. So I got to be honest, both games were lost by 2 points. I'm not saying that Tree Rollins was going to win it for us, but I would have liked to see more production out of him as I went through the,
When you're 7-1 in 2 games.
Just put it in, man. Just put it in.
Your nickname's Tree for a reason.
Exactly. And then the last one, man, all of the Boston starters played more minutes in the series than Dominique, even though all 5 of them are older than Dominique. To your point, Derek, let me go and give the ages real quick. Larry Bird, 31 years old. Kevin McHale, 30 years old. Robert Parrish, 34 years old. Danny Ainge, 28 years old. Now let's go through the Hawks. Dominique Wilkins, 28. Doc Rivers, 26. Kevin Willis, 25. Tree Rollins, 32. But I'm just saying, man, these you nailed it on the head. They were done by the end of this series. The Hawks killed them, and that's why they didn't beat Detroit. On paper, even with their age, they're still the better team than Detroit. And had Detroit's number in previous years in the playoffs, but Hawks killed them, man. And I gotta say, it's some of these performances by some of these players, like a Kevin Willis, who's 25 years old, which you got to remember at the time, guys. A 25-year-old player in the NBA, that's basically like his second year. They were coming in the league old. They were staying in college for all 4 years. And it's not the same landscape that it is today. So 25 years old, and in a Game 5 win, dropped 27 points and 15 boards. Come on, man, that's insane against a Boston Celtics team in the 80s. So Doc Rivers had a great game, and a great series, rather, averaging over 17.5, right at 10 assists. Had 129 offensive rating for the entire series, which for a guard is pretty damn good. It's Doc Rivers, so it's kind of weird that he's playing the Celtics, but hey.
Well, no, it goes back to when Danny Ainge hired Doc Rivers to be the Celtics coach to win that championship in 2008, which the Hawks did take them to 7, and 1 versus 8.
I didn't even mention that one in the beginning. Damn, exactly. We got a connection to the Celtics, man.
So, Danny Ainge even said famously, one of the reasons why I wanted to get Doc as the coach, because I remember playing against him throughout the 80s, and also specifically in this series, his competitiveness. And that was the problem. Boston had Bird, McHale, and Ainge. We just had, besides a couple games from Willis, it was Rivers and Dominique.
Right.
And that's.
No, Willis basically, when he played bad, we lost. When he played well, we won. So, and you're nailing it right on the head. When we had that third punch, that knockout punch in Willis, we would win. And, like I said, game 5, the 27-14 in Boston. Like, I mean, I'm just saying that's huge. Like, if somebody does that today, that's all they're talking about on first take the next morning. That's all everybody's tweeting about is being like 27-15 from, Paulo Banchero in the playoffs next year or something. I know Paulo Banchero is younger than 25, but you get what I'm saying.
That game 7, let's face it. We haven't got there yet, but that game 7, like, it is hands down one of the best game 7s ever.
Watch game 7. If you watch any game from that series, even though it's a loss for us, watch that game 7. Because Derek, it's like you were reading my notes through the screen, man. My next note was game 7 was neck and neck the entire time, man. Neither team could pull away. Neek dropped 47. Berg went for 34. And honestly, man, you know what? I'm dubbing it right now. I know it's almost 40 years later, but that was the Eastern Conference version of Magic Bird right there. And I'm serious because those dudes, every single time they saw each other in playoffs, were at each other's necks, dropping 30 burgers left and right, maybe even 40 burgers. And I don't know, man. It's one of those, as somebody – well, I'll speak for most NBA fans. The NBA in the 80s, it was just different. I think that's probably arguably when it may have been its best product. Of course the product is amazing today. I'm not knocking the product today. But man, dude, some of these legendary series, I wish I could have seen them.
That was man basketball back then. You had to be a man to go down into the paint. Tree, he almost bit Danny Ainge's finger off in 1983. And don't forget, game 3 and game 4 were played back to back in the playoffs. They played them back to back. They would never do that in today's NBA.
Right. No,
it was a different league. You had to be way tougher. And never forget, even that game 7, talking about that game 7, getting back to it. One thing I know, Boston fans, they catch a lot of flack for, for their treatment of certain types of players, let's say. But one thing Dominique even says, hey, like that Boston fans, like they know basketball because Doc Rivers fouled out in that game. And he got a standing ovation from the Garden with how well he played. And not just, oh, thank God he's out, but it was just like, holy crap, like,
wasn't Toronto cheering on Kevin Durant, busting his Achilles. It was them congratulating him on his performance. Yeah, no, showing respect. I feel you. And, the back-to-back thing, like you're saying, man, game 3 and 4 were back. It was a back-to-back. Like, that would never be scheduled in the NBA playoffs today, having 2 playoff games and a back-to-back. And guess what? The Hawks were down 0-2. Have game 3 and 4 back-to-back, won both games by combined almost 30 points. So I'm telling you, man, this set right here, I should have included it with the Bird Magic version in the East with Bird and Neek. But the Hawks and Celtics at that point had met 9 times in the playoffs, and 3 of them were in the 80s. So I'm just saying, like, we saw each other in the playoffs a lot. I think I can make that claim that it was the Eastern Conference version of Magic.
They have been our boogeyman. Even when we were in St. Louis, we won that championship in 58, but we lost in 57 to another game 7 in the finals, a double overtime thriller. We lost to them in 60 and 61. Like, when I tell people, like, when Al Horford left us and went to Boston, to me, that was the biggest slap in the face, because to me, Boston is the team, in our history, that I don't like the most. I don't like them. I want to beat them every time we play them. And it's out of, because they beat our ass in the freaking playoffs every time. And they kept Dominique Wilkins from getting to the freaking 3rd round. And,
No, and dude, that's literally like my next note is that it's like, look, as awesome as that may be to have such a connection as the Atlanta Hawks to one of the greatest franchises in all of American sports in the Boston Celtics. And I've said that on this podcast before. I'm like, talking about Hawks fans, I'm like, hey, we can't all cheer for the Celtics, okay? Like, I'm just saying, like, I will give them the respect where it's due, and that the Celtics are one of the greatest franchises in American professional sports history. And to have that connection to them is pretty cool. But where it becomes a little more sour and a little more dim is just the idea of exactly what you just said, and that this year was hands down our best chance to beat the Boston Celtics in the playoffs and get Neek to a conference finals and maybe even an NBA finals. And because of how damn good they were, we were just never able to do that. And, that's ultimately what it meant for the Hawks. Unfortunately, it pretty much did mean the end of the Neek era in, a Hawks uniform when they could actually compete for a title. The Hawks would make it back to the playoffs 3 more times with Dominique, but failed to make it out of the first round every single time. So it was kind of like one of those where when you look back on it now that we have all of the history and the statistics, you truly can kind of pinpoint it was like, damn, man, that was he was playing at the highest level of his career, and because of this juggernaut that were the Boston Celtics of the 1980s, was not able to get over that hump. And I got to be honest with you, man, I know that's something that probably still has to eat at him, and I feel it for him, man. That's rough.
But I will say this: we are very blessed to have such an amazing person to be like outside our stadium on a statue.
Right.
I mean, not only an amazing player,
I'm so proud of him, man. That's why he's back there every single episode. That's still my guy. And if you follow my Twitter account, he's in my profile picture because he photoshopped me in there. I didn't do that. All right, I just need to clarify that he photoshopped me. So
but he's also like, I mean, amazing play-by-play guy, color commentary, but also his storytelling. Like the guy is, I mean, he's a special guy, and we're very, very lucky to, as us Hawks fans, get to call him one of our own. And he's a Georgia boy. He went to UGA, left early. Then we're actually, funny enough, the year they made the Final Four the year. And who did they lose to that year?
I don't remember actually.
Jimmy B and NC State.
That's right.
Don't ever give up.
That's right. That's right. Hey, Georgia had to sacrifice themselves to complete one of the greatest sports stories in the history of America. So hey, but yeah, no, man, it's truly, I won't sit here and act like I watched all 7 games. I did watch a few of them, most notably Game 7, and I'm telling you guys, definitely go check this series out. I'm sure there's, if you rummage around YouTube enough, there may even be a little compilation and whatnot. I'd love to eventually make that. I got to figure out how to do that kind of video editing though, and get the rights for it. But it's a series that at the end of the day, I think if it swings in the Hawks' favor, we end up beating Detroit. Even if we push, the Lakers to 6-7 games and still lose, I still do think that cements Dominique Wilkins as a top 30 player of all time. And I know some people are going to come for me because, like you said previously, some lists he's not even top 50. But I really think people underestimate how good this guy truly was. And you know what I listen to the most? I don't honestly listen to other fans like me and you. And I listen to us. But what I'm getting at is no. When you hear people that played in his era talk about him, they talk about him like he is one of the greatest offensive threats the game has ever seen. And I just, what am I going to trust a bunch of fans like us or people that play him against him? Of course, I'm going to trust them. So
you stole the words straight out of my mouth. One, I think there was some bias involved because at the time, Atlanta for most of that time was like, what were the only team in the Deep South? Only team in the Deep South. And there's always been a Northeast and West Coast bias in the media, especially during that era. So, yeah, when it comes to go and just type in Dominique Wilkins, like NBA legends or something, and have listen to the guys that played against him. Go listen to the Kenny Smiths. Go listen to the Chucks. Go listen to Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, all these guys talk about him playing against him. And go watch his highlight reels. He was doing dunks that looked like dunk contest dunks in the middle of games. Like, the dude was special. And I truly do believe not getting out of second round mixed with it's in which media have talked about. There is a little bit of media bias. Like, these guys are playing the bigger markets, which I know a lot the younger people, when I say bigger markets, they're like, wait, Atlanta's one of the biggest markets in the country. What are you talking about? Well, back then it wasn't.
Right.
And I don't think he gets the flowers he really deserves. So all you young kids out there, you got YouTube. Go watch some Dominique Wilkins highlights. Go watch other stories. And you will see why he's called the human highlight reel.
Oh, yeah.
He was LeBron James before LeBron James.
Hey man, that's a legitimate statement right there. And if you guys go check out those videos, I promise you will not be disappointed. And it's something at the end of the day that he honestly I think has always been one of my more favorite players ever. Not even just a Hawks player. And I'm not going to act like I've ever had an extended conversation with him, but I have met him a couple times at Hawks games and at the Meet the Team. And the dude is just so genuine and so nice. And you can tell he's one of those people that understands that so much has been given to him with his talent and his ability. And now, obviously, with his financial success from being a player and all of that, that he continues to give back in so many ways. And I just got to tip my cap to the legend that is Dominique Wilkins. So we'll wrap it up on that, though. I had a ton of fun doing this episode, man. It's one that, to be completely honest, I'll give you guys a little insight on the behind the scenes. When we first started the podcast, it was really only supposed to be stuff like this. Then we quickly changed it to a weekly idea. We figured that'd be a little bit better. The point being, man, is I've waited a long time to do this episode. So I'm incredibly excited and thankful that we were able to do it. And I hope you guys enjoy it, man. As always, check out all of our stuff at HawksFanTV.com. That's where you'll find our articles and different content as well. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at HawksFanTV if you don't already. That's where Alex will be doing spaces, and you can see some other stuff, some of his wild tweets that he's always tweeting. And then just again, guys, thank you as always for the support. Be looking out for more podcasts. We're gonna keep them coming each week, man. Next week we have a whole nother history of the Hawks. I'll go ahead and tell you what it's going to be about. It's going to be about Spud Webb in the dunk contest. Right, baby. So I'm just as excited for that one. It's going to be a fun one, guys. So definitely check it out. Thank you guys, and go Hawks, baby.
Yeah, no, thank you guys, for all the support. Follow, go to Hawks Fans TV, read the articles, jump in on the spaces, and hey, follow me and Mac as well. Hey, give us feedback. We'd love to hear from you, what we all might like to see as well. And maybe one day we'll actually get done with an ending here without bumbling our way through and actually have an actual clean cutaway. Because it's something we're still working on.
Man. We need a teleprompter. We'll get there. We'll get there.
But hey, guys, thank you. We're having a lot of fun doing this. And yeah, next week we can't wait to talk about old 5'6" of Spud Webb in that dunk contest. That's gonna be a lot of fun. Even though this is before Mac and I's time, we might be a little older. I'm still not that old, but still, it's real fun to go back and look at just some of the greats that have gotten to don the Hawks uniform and help some of y'all younger guys. Maybe y'all can learn a thing or two. Maybe y'all jump on YouTube, like I said, and go look at some more of the history, because there's a lot to our organization. Yeah, we might not have the championships that we want, but man, it's been there's a lot of fun peaks and valleys in here. Well, no, I wouldn't say fun valleys, because losing is never fun, but we got a lot of great things that we get to kind of hold our head high about being a Hawks fan. And 5'6" dunk champion is definitely one of those. So y'all take care until next week. Go Hawks.
Yes, sir.